Hey guys, so in today's video I wanted to talk about some tips for healthcare workers, whether you are a CNA, whether you are a caregiver, a nurse, etc., and you're disabled. So I personally have had a hard time being open about being someone who is working in the medical field with a disability. And a lot of people don't realize that there are so many people that have a condition that causes a disability, and people continue to work in the medical field because obviously people got into the medical field for a reason. And just like any other industry that someone can work in, people can have disabilities and still be successful in whatever industry they choose to work in. Now, there may be certain things that you can't do with your disability, or you may have to kind of switch job roles where, let's say, you are a nurse and you work in med surg. You may end up getting into an accident or contracting an illness that causes a disability with you, and so maybe you might have to stop working as a nurse in a med surg setting, and you might need to start working for a health insurance company or working from home doing telephone triage, etc. So it's not saying that somebody with a disability can't work in the medical field. You just might have to adjust your role. So the first tip, and I'm looking at this article that's kind of catered more to nurses who have a disability and are going back to work, or are choosing to work with their disability. But I think that this kind of works for anybody in the healthcare field. So the first tip is to know the Americans with Disabilities Act well. The Americans with Disabilities Act is designed to protect individuals with disabilities from discrimination in a variety of settings, including jobs, schools, and transportation. So I'm just going to read a little bit of information about this. Many different conditions may qualify as a disability if they significantly impair your ability to engage in one or more major life activities. Categories of disabilities include neurological, musculoskeletal, respiratory, cardiovascular, digestive, immune, circulatory, lymphatic, skin, endocrine, and more. In the United States, the ADA is the single most important law for dictating how employers can treat employees during and after the hiring process. So it's a good idea for you to make sure that you read through the ADA and get familiar with the ADA and how it affects you personally. Another tip would be to study your employer's benefits package, whether you have a condition that may cause you to need to take FMLA. It's important for you to be aware of how you qualify for FMLA and things like that. Whether you are offered short-term or long-term disability, it may be helpful for you to actually pay for those things, because you never know, as a person with a disability, or even just as a person in general, you never know when something is going to happen that's going to affect your ability to work. So there may be return to work or stay to work policies when it comes to people who have disabilities, and you can always ask your HR department questions about what happens if, due to my medical conditions, I'm unable to work for a certain period of time. Is there light duty or something similar to that you could do instead? Also, if you have a disability that requires accommodations, it's important that you let your employer know, because legally they have to supply you with those accommodations. Due to the ADA law, you have to be provided accommodations so that you can perform your job duties. For example, if you are a wheelchair user, they may need to, adjust your workplace or your office setting, etc. So another one is to seek out coworkers with disabilities. I don't necessarily agree with this one, only because a lot of people tend to judge other people who have disabilities. And so me personally, I've had issues with when somebody finds out that I have a disability or I have shared that information in the past. They tend to if I'm having a bad day or I didn't do something as efficiently or as quickly as I have in the past, they tend to blame it on my disability when maybe it was just that, like, I didn't get any sleep the night before, or like I'm just having a shitty day overall. I don't like that my work is being blamed on me having a disability if, for whatever reason I got behind that day or whatever. Although having someone else who has a disability can be a support system for you, I would definitely say that it's okay if you don't, if you don't want to reach out to somebody at your workplace who has that disability. There are online support groups and things like that for nurses, for healthcare professionals, and just in general for people who have either just disabilities in general or who have the same medical condition as you. But their tip for that is like so that you have like a mentor or somebody who can be a support system for you. And that kind of ties in with number 4, which is build a support network for yourself. Number 5 would be to keep any certifications up to date. I think that would be more if you had to take like a long sabbatical from work or you needed to take FMLA for an extended period of time. I am always of the notion that once you get a certification, always keep it up to date because you never know when you might need to use it. And so, if you worked so hard to get the license or certification in the first place, don't let it lapse. So that includes keeping up with your CEUs or continuing education requirements, just so that when you are able to go back to work, then you don't have any issues going back to work because your licensing, your certification, all of that stuff is still up to date. And this says explore new specialties. That's what I was kind of talking about. Like if you work in med-surg and you're not really able to do bedside nursing anymore for whatever reason, then maybe you could switch to like work from home telephone triage or working for an insurance company or like whatever the case may be. You might just need to switch from hospital to clinic or something like that. It just all depends on your own personal preferences and what you're able to do with your career. So I hope this was helpful. Like I can make another video talking more about like my own personal experiences as someone who works in the medical field with multiple disabilities and chronic illnesses. I would definitely love to be able to share with you guys my story on different ways that I have kind of dealt with some of the judgment that I have gotten as someone who is working in the medical field with disabilities. It's not always easy, I will tell you that much, because sometimes people are just very judgmental and very rude and cruel, and, it's not always a warm, welcoming place to work in healthcare. And, a lot of the times I have found myself ending up working extra and doing like going above and beyond just so that I can try to put myself in a better place. So then if I do have a bad day where I'm like extra tired, kind of like lethargic and not really on top of my game, then they see that that's not my normal like work. So anyways, like I said, if you guys would like to hear more about my own personal experiences as a healthcare worker with disabilities, I would love to share it. If there's any other topics you'd like me to talk about, please let me know and I would be glad to get something filmed for you. And I will talk to you guys again in my next video.